I just want to start by saying thank you so much for being here today. As I mentioned, we have lots of sick kids around in the school, and it is a commitment to developing a better community and stronger communities, and that's what has inspired me in Rosalind's work. And I'm going to read because I don't want to miss anything in her career of working with young people and working with adults. Rosalind is an American author, speaker, and educator known for her work in youth culture, leadership, and social dynamics. She is best recognized for her best-selling book, Queen Bees Wannabes, which served as inspiration for the movie Mean Girls. She has also written Masterminds and Wingmen, and I believe it's right here. There it is. Through her writing and public speaking, Wiseman addresses issues such as bullying, gender roles, and ethical leadership, helping parents, educators, and young people navigate complex social challenges. She has also co-authored books and curricula on character development and social emotional learning, which we use here at ISP, the Owning Up curriculum. And the book 10 to 25, The Science of Understanding Young People and Motivating Them. That's the book that we've been reading in the middle school. So she helped to craft the end of the book where there's exercises where we can take what we learned from the book and apply them to our current settings. It goes without saying that this makes Rosalind an expert in the field, and so we're really happy to have her here today. I first started knowing more about Rosalind not only through her books, but I went to an overseas consortium for overseas principals in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and Rosalind was one of the people who I met there who was working with us about a book called Courageous Discomfort, and it was really inspiring to me. And when I heard she was in the area, we connected. And I said, can you swing by ISP? And Rosalind has been here before, just before COVID, yes, I believe. Yeah. And so she's familiar with our school and with Prague and is happy to be back, to be working with us. In our middle school, we are not immune to the social challenges that our kids face. And so I feel that it's time to revisit the conversation about how we can inspire our kids to be empowered to be leaders in creating the kind of social dynamic they wish to see in their school. Okay,
Thanks,
so without further ado, I welcome
Thank you.
Rosalind to ISP.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And you know she's a good middle school administrator because she literally is starting at exactly the time that we are supposed to start. Michelle's being, I just want to say, just a little modest in where she met me in DC, because the training in DC is a place where people, administrators come and are invited by the Office of Overseas Schools. And they're really seen as like the leading people, administrators around the world in the international school world. And they come to Washington and they do a cohort learning. And I'm privileged to be one of the trainers for that group. But you get there because you're really recognized as an extraordinary leader in the international school community. So I just wanted to, just have a pause on, I went to this thing in Washington and she was there, because it really is an extraordinary thing to be there. I am here. I'm going through a time of working in Spain and Athens. Spain is where my husband is from. And the reason that I'm saying that is because when I said that I was going to Prague, my older son, who goes to university in Spain and has never been to Prague, and my husband were like, well, we want to come because they've never been. So I've got two people. Well, my son's never been here, and my husband, who actually is going to be teaching 2 science classes today and tomorrow. Many, many, many years ago, I was here when we were in our 20s, and we had no money, and we went to a bar, and I did not let him get the second beer that he wanted because I felt like we didn't have enough money. So me bringing him here is also for me to make amends. And he can get however, well, I mean, of course, not gonna, but he can get, I'm not gonna say anything. Let me just say that. I know it's gonna be a lot more expensive than it was all those years ago when we were here, but that's one of the reasons. And then the other thing is he is going to be teaching a science class. He works in regenerative and sustainable design, social design, and ecological design. So he's going to be doing that as well, which is the first time that we've ever done this. He went to Robert College in Istanbul with me 2 weeks ago as a residence and learning, but this is a new thing for me. I have family here. So it's really, it's an honor and a privilege to be here and to have family here, and it's sort of all coming together. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through, I'm always learning. I'm always learning and figuring out how to apply the body of work that I have to the day-to-day work of parenting and teaching. That's what I do. And so I'm going to share with you some of those things. I'm going to share with you a little bit. I was here before, a little bit before COVID, and it was an extraordinary experience. There were things that students said to me, maybe in this room, or maybe in the room, it was right around here, that have stuck with me since that moment. And so I want to share with you a little bit about who I am. And so look, Queen Bees and Wannabes became Mean Girls, which is how maybe your kids will know me. But did I think that writing 20 plus years ago a nonfiction how-to advice book about girl social dynamics would become one of the most memed things in the world? No, I did not think that. I did not think it would become part of the cultural zeitgeist. I did not think that. So I just want you to know, like, yes, this is like a little tiny part of my life, and it's how young people know me around the world, and the work is so much deeper than that. So here's more of like who I am, and I want you to know who I am besides the books that I write. So I work across administrations. I have worked across White House administrations and in all different kinds of ways in the federal and local government in the United States and around the world, right? So most of what I do, 70% of what I do now is working with international schools. So here is where I'm at KAUST in Jeddah, doing a keynote for that school and working with them for the week. Over here is my Mean Girls world. That's right before, that's at the Tony's luncheon. That's like my sort of fancy world. This is the son who's with me right now, who's going to university in Spain. And he is in boarding school in Massachusetts in high school. Here is the co-author, Shantara McBride, of my Before 10 to 25, which I helped David Yeager write. But this is the book I wrote that Michelle mentioned called Courageous Discomfort, and we wrote that together. This is my youngest son, who is going to be living in Madrid soon. And so this is sort of my life sort of on like social media. But the reason that I'm also saying this, and I think it's important, not only you might see, not because he's here and because I have permission to be able to do this, is that one of the things that we know is that young people are experiencing, we talk a lot about anxiety and depression and all of these things, right? Like all of the things, and the phones are the entire culprit of the problem. Does that sound familiar? I don't actually believe that. And I'm going to walk you through some of the reasons why I think that. I think it's a complexity and I think it's a challenge, but I also think it's way deeper than that. But one of the reasons why I'm doing this and talking about him for 30 seconds is this. So he had a lot of challenges when he was growing up. He always did very well in school. He was an athlete, as you can tell. He went to university in the United States for basketball, and then he left and went to school in Spain, and university in Spain. But here's the thing, as a parent, now I'm going to talk to you as a parent. As a parent, we focus so much sometimes, if we have multiple kids in our families, on the child who presents with the most problems, right? Who like really is bringing our attention to them. But the thing that I also want to really bring our attention to is this person. So this is my younger child who is always easier, right? And he was easier for some reasons, he is sort of naturally easier, but also he was easier because he did not want to add to our problems. So there were times, I do this for a living, and I did not know how we were going to get through with this kid. I really did not. I didn't know if we were. I didn't know if he would. But at the same time, one of the things I realize is that these children, our other children, sometimes feel that they cannot come forward when they have problems because they know that mom and dad or the family is so worried about the other one. And so one of the things I want you to hear from me as a parent is that all of our children have a right to an emotional life and the ups and downs of their lives. And sometimes the kids that are quieter don't feel that they can come forward and talk to us because they don't want to add to our plate. So what Elijah, my older child, was going through is important. Absolutely. And by the way, to be 100% clear about this, I am very good at my job. I am very, very good at it. But because I am an expert on it did not mean that I could help him the way that I needed to. In fact, actually being a mother, his mother, as he would say at the time, was intolerable to him. I would walk in the room and it would be so difficult for him because I was worried, he could feel I was worried, he didn't want me to worry, all of those things, that I had to depend on the people at the school to help us through. Because my love for him really translated into anxiety that he could feel. And so we had to find people who loved him, who also knew what he was like in his challenges and were not his parents. That's actually one of the things I think is incredibly important when we talk about partnership in schools, because we talk sort of about we are partners, right? Parents in schools are partners. We are really partners because sometimes being a parent is actually not what is needed. We have to find the people who love our children, like our children, sometimes know their challenges, and also can see this child in the spectrum of all of the different children that they've seen, and also the spectrum of child development. And sometimes it is too hard as a parent to see it, because all you can focus on is, oh my gosh, this is going to be the way it is for the rest of their lives, right? So, 2 things to hear. Partnership is real with the school, and everybody gets a right to an emotional life. Okay? So that's who I really am, besides books and stuff like that. Okay? All right. So here's what I wanted to share with you. Whoops, sorry. I wanted to share with you some things from international schools around the world. Okay? But like ISP kids, like kids. So adults think things are so simple. Just find new friends or just focus more. It's not the same as when they were our age. They put us in groups, the school puts us in groups, and then someone in the group doesn't do any work, and I will get a bad grade if I don't do it, and it makes me so mad. I want adults to be direct with us. Stop talking around things. It's weird. And we are told to think before we speak, but I feel before I think, and I have a lot of feelings. So this person already has their PhD in psychology, and this person is 12 years old. This person was 12 years old. These are all quotes from international school students. Now, the other part, just to put a highlight on it, I'm going to say things just to put words to things that we know, is that just find new friends in an international school like ISP with high rates of turnover, right, is a completely different social mechanism than at other schools. And so so just find new friends or go find a new friend group is always complex and more complicated than it seems. But for international schools, it's really hard. It's really hard. So I want to just, I want us also to take a step back to really feel and think about what it feels like for them. And then this, for me, is really about why social emotional skills are so important. Because if we're going to put young people in groups to work together and collaborate so that they can grow up and work in teams, then we actually have to prepare them for that as a social skill. And what I know, because I work in corporations all over, is that as technology advances and as AI is increasingly intertwined with our lives, what we are hearing over and over again is that social skills and working in teams and being able to manage oneself in a group is an incredibly highly valued skill. High value skill. So this stuff is not being kind and nice and soft. It is about skills that they have to apply as they get older, and will be, frankly, like increasingly challenged to be able to be good at. So the more we do this, the more we take it seriously about it. We're going to have young people in teams to work and collaborate, and we're going to use this as opportunities for them to learn how to deal when someone takes credit for the work that you do. Or if someone's micromanaging you, right, and taking over everything, and you are so frustrated, but then you just give up because you're like, fine, they're going to do whatever, they're going to take over anyway, so I'm just going to disengage from the group. Or on the other side, if you're like, this person is not doing it the way I want them to do it, so I'm going to do it for them. All of those kinds of dynamics. Or what happens if somebody doesn't do the work? How do you talk to them? These are literally work skills that we have to use every day. So really important. And I also wanted to share with you, one of these is from ISP. I did two focus groups with the students before I got here. So I'm not, and I, of course I told your kids collectively that I was not going to out them, right? I was not going to share who said what. But here are also some too from ISP. I'm a very emotional person, but people don't know that because I don't show it on the outside. But if they knew, maybe they would be more sensitive to me, which is brilliant. Awareness. Most adults think that when children are wrong, the problem was with the child instead of looking for the problem in themselves. Instead of apologizing, they put themselves in the position of being right. I think too much about myself and my environment. In short, about everything. Thinking so much hurts me after a while.
What age are these kids?
Middle school. So they're very smart, right? These are very smart people. I don't think you'd be surprised by that, but like we're literally looking at their emotional intelligence. Okay, so now we're gonna ask you a question. I would like at your tables to answer this question. And if you're a teacher, you could answer this question as a teacher too. What do you say to your children or your students over and over again? What are the most common things that you say to your kids over and over again? Okay? Are we clear on the assignment? Yeah. All right, the table has approximately 4 minutes because each person I want to go for like 45 seconds, okay? All right, begin.
She's in grade 5? Yeah. So quite young, but...
Okay. You're welcome for your little bit of therapy for right now. Can we have some ones that you said at the table that people were like, oh my gosh, I do that too? Or that you could relate to? Because I heard people going like, oh my gosh. So would anyone like to share one of the things that people said at the table?
We were speaking about how if we ask the children to do something and it's kind of just ignore until you actually
Scream.
scream.
Yes.
And I would like to be able to have them listen.
You would like them not
getting
screaming.
into the screaming.
Yep, okay. They have such selective hearing, it's incredible. Okay, all right, so you'd like them to listen to you before you are screaming at them. Okay. And then they say like, why are you screaming at me, right? And you're like, are you kidding me? All right, what else do we have? I wish it's funny, I really do not have family ever with me. And in fact, I wish now at this moment my older son was here right now. He could hear that. All right, what else do we have? One or two other things. That what? They say what? I love you. That's very nice. Yeah. Okay.
We had the typical, like, do you really need to be on your phone just now? Do you want to put the phone down? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like, wow, your room that could do with a little.
Oh, so you're like the passive aggressive table. Do you really need to be on your phone right now?
There was also a little bit of the saying somebody's name and maybe them not really hearing. So if the child's name was being said but not being heard.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And I heard you all say something really funny. Do you want to say something? Because I know I don't usually. Which one? Which one? Can you give me a highlight of one of the ones that you were laughing about?
Stop doing something.
Stop.
Stop parroting somebody. Yes. Stop parenting your younger siblings.
Stop parenting.
Elders, like, yeah, so stop parenting your siblings.
Okay.
Or like stop sort of,
Teaching
say,
each other.
poking
Hey,
and
bro,
making
what's up?
Right. Okay. I also heard you all saying like calm down.
Yeah, calm down.
Calm down. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about why we say these things, why it doesn't work, and some things about how to do it differently. Okay. And so one of the things that I think is really important is to why do we say things? And this is a question to think about. And this is for teachers and for parents, is why do we keep saying things that don't work? It's a question, right? It's a curiosity. There's no shame. There's no right? But why? Why do we continue to do things that don't work? And that's right. But we're going to figure out why. I'm going to show you some of it right now. So the work I did with David Yeager that the faculty read is 10 to 25. Really takes and highlights two ways in which most of us around the world have been taught to be adults with young people. So we usually go back and forth between an enforcer mindset, which gives high expectations but low support. So you've got to be here, but you got to figure out how to do it. Or protector mindset, which is low expectations but high support. So the best way I can explain it to you overall, low expectations is making excuses for children. But giving them high support. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, which is not bad. But sometimes it can be in a way that comes across as making excuses or not holding accountable a young person. So a protector mindset also could be, for example, it's not only about positive things, it also could be when your child is doing things that are not great, making excuses for that child so they are not held accountable. Now, what's interesting in parenting, if you're parenting with two people, is that it's not uncommon for there to be one person who leans this way and one person who leans this way. And it could depend on a particular child. So if you have more than one child in the home, you could be more of an enforcer with one child and more with another. And as teachers, this is a huge thing. So we tend to go back. This tends to be how we are. It's what I would call an invisible operating system. That as adults, and when we are in relationship with young people, that we have an invisible operating system. And that system was created, again, I find this to be across cultures, that when we are young, that we have experiences about how we stand up or speak out for ourselves, or how are we learned or allowed to be in a conflict, to manage conflict, to speak out, to be quiet. What are the rules, the cultural rules, which can be different by culture, right? There's lots of people or lots of cultures in this room. But how were we allowed and taught to express when we were angry or frustrated, or even, frankly, when we're proud of our achievements on the other side? And we take those experiences, and I want you to think about when you were a teenager and the music you listened to, right? And it's in you. When you hear it now, maybe your kids make fun of you because you sort of start to do this, right? And it's in your body, right? The music you loved as a young person is in your body. This is across cultures. Similarly, the way in which we were raised to handle conflict is in our bodies in a similar way. It's similarly powerful. I believe, and there's research to back this up, that as we get older, it sort of gets quieter. But when, as parents, we have experiences of conflict or we have to advocate for ourselves, that this comes right back up. And it is making us do things where we are reacting, and we're not really mindful about why. And that is what I call the iOS, the invisible operating system. And what David did is he put words to how, in some ways, the iOS comes forward as an enforcer or as a protector. Now, the goal is to have a mentor mindset, which is providing high expectations with high support. This is a general concept, like, so what does that mean specifically? And I'm going to get into the specifics of that. What does that look like? But overall, that's our goal, is a teacher, a mentor, a parent, no matter how old your child is. I'm talking like little to when they're throughout their lives. As parents, what is the high expectations and high support that we can give them? Okay, now I'm going to go into another part of like, why do they do the things that they do? Why do they not listen until you're screaming? Why? Why do they do things where you're like, what were you thinking? Have you ever thought that to yourself? What were you thinking? That's not a question, by the way. What were you thinking is not a question. It is an accusation or a judgment, right? Of like, you're an idiot. Okay? Okay. So here's the thing, if you've not read David's book, that when he first contacted me about working with him on this book, the story he told me, I'm going to tell you right now, is the reason that I joined him on this collaboration. His wife is was a kidney transplant nurse at Stanford. And so one of the things that she had to do was to call when people seemed from their test results not to be taking the anti-rejection medication after their kidney transplants. It was one of her jobs was to call, and she was calling a lot of parents and saying, your teenage child are not taking their anti-rejection medications. Why are they not taking their medications? And the mom usually would scream up to their kid and say, are you taking the medications? And the child would say, yes, I am. And then David's wife would say, well, it looks on paper like your child is completely different from every other human being when they take these medications, so we got to bring them into the hospital. And the child would say, well, actually, I'm not taking the medication. And one of the things, like I just said, what were you thinking? Similarly, the doctors at Stanford were like, why are these children not taking their medication? But it wasn't a question. It was an accusation. And it was also frustration because they were doing things like read the instructions back to me so that you understand what's happening and the consequences if you don't take the anti-rejection medication. Because if you do take them and you've gotten a kidney transplant, you are literally free from dialysis. If you don't take them, the kidneys are going to be rejected and you will be in way bigger trouble. So why are you not doing this? Well, they weren't actually asking the question. But when they did, what they found out was that the anti-rejection medications do the following. They have side effects of bloating, bad skin, bad breath. Some people got more hair on their bodies. You can't drink, and there's one more. Oh, wait, pimples, bad skin, more hair, bad breath, you bloat, can't drink. Okay, those are the things that happen to you when you take these medications. You're a teenager. You've been on dialysis. You very much want to be part of the social group. So you are going to do things that seem really stupid, but actually makes total sense. So one of the things that we have to do as parents and as educators is we have to train ourselves to create strategies that actually motivate them, not what we think should motivate them. The fact that you think their room should be clean, that's your motivation. They, maybe don't think it needs to be clean, or they, in their mind, believe that they will clean it at a future date. They just haven't done it yet, right? But in their minds, they are doing it, or it has already been done. Okay, so this is extraordinarily important because when we look at behavior, especially discipline, our children do things that we think like, why would you do this? It comes down to this. It pretty much always comes down to this. And if you are disciplining, if you're an administrator in a middle school or high school, this is the most important question to ask, is what was the social survival that made them do what they did? Not that we want to hold children accountable, but we have to hold them accountable in an effective way. And the only way to do that is to figure out what motivated them. So this is extraordinarily important to think about with your kids. So when we think about what we're asking them to do, just put this in your mind. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit more to this, and then we're going to go back to you. So one of the things that I loved that David put words to is this. I have been for years incredibly frustrated by having experiences where adults will even tell young people to their face, and it comes across like this. And think about this sentence based on what I have just said to you. Well, you know, your brain is not developed until you're 25. That is something that psychologists and people like me have been trained in schools to believe and then say to young people, not realizing or appreciating how condescending and patronizing that comes across as. The other part is this. We say they're so impulsive. You know, we talk about this marshmallow test as if it's like the truth, where we had kids at 2 who some kids could, wait and eat one marshmallow and some kids couldn't. And we have all sorts of things about that, about like how they can not deal and be impulsive. I just want you to think about it in this way. When our children get in trouble, do they not think very carefully and think very strategically and can be very patient about how to figure out how you will not find out? Does that make sense? When the motivation is right, their prefrontal cortex works really well, really well. Think about when they get angry, and this is terrible, but when they get angry at one of their peers, or they want to have revenge against a peer, they can be very calculating and patient. They are not impulse driven. They can be very prefrontal cortex is working. And in an academic way, by the way, by 8th grade, are your children, or if those of you of high school who are, or who are in high school, are they not doing things in high school that absolutely require their prefrontal cortex in topics and in concepts that you cannot do and I cannot do, right? They're doing lots of academic things that require a high degree of prefrontal cortex work. So when we talk to them, and this is how David said it, is when we talk to them as if they have an impairment, a prefrontal cortex impairment, that is incredibly frustrating to them. And the other part is, what is our excuse? They see adults all around the world acting super stereotypically like teenagers, screaming and shouting and being all sorts of terrible. And then they look at us and they're like, well, what's your excuse for acting this way? So we've got to have honest conversations, because remember in that quote, they want direct conversations and they are with us. Okay, so, but what is it doing? It really, obviously, is about wanting to be socially accepted and successful person in their culture. And they are highly attuned to power dynamics all the time. And you, all of us in this situation, even if we're protectors or enforcers, we are in some kind of power dynamic with them all the time. You love them. They're your children, right? You love them. They are looking at you pretty consistently as a power problem, right? Because you do control things in their lives. You do. So you are aggravating. You are a source of aggravation. They love you, but you are a source of limitations, and which is, of course, okay because you're their parents. But I want you to see it from their perspective. So they are especially with people who have power over them, or they are used to exercising power themselves, if they have that themselves. And to feel disrespected feels literally intolerable, physically, physiologically intolerable. So when people say to them, as adults, to a child, you have to respect me because I'm an adult, and that's just the end of it, no matter how that adult treats people, even if they don't flip out, even if they're not showing it internally, they are raging. They're raging. So this is some of the stuff that's going on in their brain. So what drives them? Being taken seriously. I don't care how ridiculous you think the problem is that they're dealing with. I myself have situations with children where I think, really this is the problem that you're dealing with? Like, or really this is what you're so angry about? Really this is the thing that you went and decided to destroy this other child's life about because that she looked at you wrong? Really? Like, that's like right in here. But we've got to take whatever it is seriously. That's the most important to them because that's what will make them listen. Participating in experiences to feel pride, admiration, and respect. That's what drives them. They will do anything to avoid embarrassment and shame, which means, for example, that if they're feeling stupid or incompetent in a class, they will do whatever they can to get out of it because it is physiologically impossible for them to be there. They are seeking earned prestige, your reputation for competence and value in the group. And that means if they get that, they feel a sense of belonging. And when you're in a place of belonging, you can do really hard things. Meaning that this, of course, is the way your brain can learn the best. If you don't feel that you belong, then you cannot learn because your brain shuts down. So this is what overall, the sort of connection and collaboration that David and I did of the research that he was aggregating and the on-the-ground work that I do. All right, before I go on, questions, comments, concerns, feelings, what do you need? Before I give you, like, here's what we do about it. We good? Any clarification? Okay. All right. Now, by the way, if you screamed at your child this morning, don't worry about it. But one of the things that we get as parents is we actually get lots of redos, right? We actually get to repair. And in fact, actually, one of the most important things for your child, truly in their development, is the process of constant misalignment with their parents and alignment and repair with their parents. Truly. It is about repair and misrepair, like not getting it right, getting it right, not getting it right, getting it right, which, by the way, I'm going to say this before I forget, my biggest concern about the cell phone, truly, is not with them. It's with us. And the reason why is because, and I did get quotes from your students about this, but I get them from everywhere, is them saying to us, Mom, Dad, and they're trying to get your attention off of the phone. My 23-year-old said it to me yesterday. So it is because I was getting ready to do work here. He's like, Mom. So one of the things, and to say what I mean by that specifically is that when we are really, really focused on our phones, we are missing our moments of looking at them or having the miscues and then the realignment, right? The repair the mistakes, because we're so this way. That actually, if I could get Jonathan Haidt, to the person who did anxiety, phones, whatever, if I could get him to focus on parents, that would be really helpful. Because blaming kids and social media and phones, I believe, is a pretty reductive way to look at this. So, and it's also not listening to young people, which, by the way, is really important. So when children are saying, I can't get my parents' attention because they're looking at their phones, that is important because we don't see them sometimes. So again, it's about repair, but the positive is when we make mistakes, the process of repair is what it's all about. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of making things more realistic. So one of the mistakes that we made in social emotional learning is doing all these anti-bullying programs that pretty much were superficial, patronizing, didn't work. Because we made bullying to be this one thing, right? And then everything became bullying, and parents talked about bullying all the time, and every conflict that students got into was named bullying, which made people in schools, administrators, that put them in a very difficult position. And kids don't, for the most part, like that word, because it feels like it ups the escalation from here to here, and they lose control. Okay, so here's what I think we need to be doing, and this is based on young people helping me with this definition. So we've got 4 different words. I'm going to go over this, by the way, with the 7th and 8th grade in about an hour. Rude is unintentionally hurting someone by excluding, embarrassing, or putting somebody down, right? But that's unintentional. Mean is doing it intentionally. Drama is serious to the people involved, but not taken seriously by the people entertained by it. So one of the things that's really important as a parent, especially of middle school people, is that somebody's entertainment is not another person's embarrassment. Because remember when I said a slide ago, like embarrassment is absolutely your brain and your body just freak out. So it's horrible anyway. But as parents, this is much more important than, are you on Instagram, or are you on this, or are you on that? Is them understanding conceptually from you that you believe that their entertainment is not somebody else's embarrassment or humiliation. And that can start when they're 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and bullying is repeatedly abusing or threatening to abuse power against another person, and it is really focused on something about them is not acceptable for the community, and that's why it's such a big deal. But all of these things, based on the stuff I just said to you, all of these things matter hugely to them. So all of these things can be taken seriously. When someone is rude to us, and we don't know them, it bothers us, right, as adults. When someone's mean to us, we carry that with us for the rest of the day. Same as with our kids. Okay, so that's just one example, and it's also something I'm going to do with the students afterwards. Okay, and here's one of the most important sort of granular concepts you can think about for middle school and high school. This is appropriate actually for all of life. Michelle asked me to be here for middle school, which is why I'm directing my ideas, my concepts this way, but this is more granular. So one of the things that happens is young people feel like teasing is this one big thing. And owning up does do this. We talk about this in owning up. Michelle, there's one addition to this that I think is really important. But being able to break down teasing, annoying teasing, and harmful teasing, so it's not just one big thing. So playful teasing is you feel liked, you don't feel put down, they're gonna stop if you ask, and you don't think about it afterwards. That's the difference. You do not think about it afterwards. Annoying teasing is maybe the other person doesn't know how you feel. They're really good at saying, I was just joking, but they don't stop to think about how it's impacting you. And you think about it a little afterwards, but you're not 100% focused on it, right? If it's happening to you. If it's harmful, the person is teased about what you feel shy or not confident about. It is relentless. It is in public, so that includes social media. You don't feel there's anything you can do to stop it, right? The other person has all the power. And it's constantly in your mind. And you anticipate it happening again. So you're in a hyper-aroused state. Totally different, but we have a catch-all term for it of teasing. So if we can distinguish those things for young people, it feels like, because they get embarrassed of I can't put up with this, I'm soft, or something like, I should be able to deal with this, these are my friends doing this to me. By the way, this absolutely happens in our families and work environments as adults. Okay, so we have to put words to it. When we put words to it, we can do something about it. All right, so now I'm gonna ask you one question. I'm gonna give you, we have until 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna give you 2 minutes, and I want you to answer a question to your partner at the table. So each person's gonna go 1 minute, and then we'll switch. I'll switch you, same question, which is this. Who did you respect when you were growing up, and why? Who did you respect when you were growing up, and why? And how is this person responsible for you being here today? So we go deep. We go deep. We go deep. So who did you respect when you were growing up? Think about how they treated you, how they treated other people. Just put them in your mind, okay? So I'm going to turn to somebody at your table. You have 1 minute to answer that question, okay? You can decide who goes first. Ready, and go. Now, I really do want you to hold this person in your head and your heart. Really important. Because I absolutely believe in the concept of respect. When I walk into the group of 7th and 8th graders I'm going to do in a half an hour, I want them to respect me, absolutely, as the person coming in, but with an understanding that I have worked hard to be in front of them. That not just because I'm a teacher or somebody who's written books or something like that, but that I have worked hard for them, that I deserve, I've done the work to be in front of them. And again, remember, I go all around the world, right? All around the world. And one of the things that actually brings us all together is two things. One is that we must respect our elders, right? Around the world, people believe that. Two is respect is a very complicated word. And it often can actually mean something very different. That it actually can mean showing respect to someone that you don't, and that then you don't respect them because they're not treating other people with dignity. And that gets really tough for all of us around the world. And it's really complex. I mean, we're at an international school. So believe me when I say, when I am in, for example, Panama, like I'm gonna be in next week, and Brazil, and Paraguay, and here, and Athens, and China, and Beijing, and where else have I, whatever. I have been many places. This is a resonating, difficult concept for people across cultures in a really similar way. So, and the reason is because, I'm gonna do this from the English Latin derivation of the word respect, is that respect actually from that history of words is about admiring someone's actions, that you look at someone and admire what they're doing. So therefore, it is earned, not just given. And in contrast, dignity is a given, and it means the inherent worth of each of us. You get dignity, you earn respect. That is hard that goes right up against pretty much every culture. Here's what respect broken down in Latin means. Re equals truth, spectare means to see, so respectare means to see again. You are looking at someone and admiring their actions. So what gets complicated is most of us, if not all of us, have learned that parent, teacher, grandparent, uncle, politician, whoever, police, institutions merit respect. But what we know is that, as I said a few seconds ago, is that most of us have been in a situation where we have to show respect to someone we don't. And that they are in a position of authority and using the respect that they get because of their position to abuse power. But we can't say anything about it. I was just in Istanbul a couple of weeks ago. Now, it is dangerous for some of us in some contexts to speak out about this. It is absolutely dangerous. This is not easy stuff I'm talking about. But at least to be able to talk about the words and the truth of these words is important because it directly connects to how young people engage with adults and directly engage with learning. Because when they have a teacher that they respect, they will work very hard. And the reason that they will do that, and I want you to think about the person that you said, who did I respect when I was growing up, is that usually people who say, like in their minds, who is it that you respected? It might have been a parent, but it wasn't just because they were a parent. It was because of how they conducted themselves. Because there are certainly parents and grandparents who don't treat people well, just to use that group of people. So it's not just about their title, it's about how they act within that title. So when people say, you must respect me as your teacher, parent, whatever, it is an immediate, especially with the adolescent development that I just talked to you about, immediate disengagement. Immediate disengagement. And so the enforcer mentality gets very difficult with this because enforcers love to demand respect. And what they really mean is obedience and compliance no matter how I am acting, which is infuriating to young people. And it can be dangerous if they talk out about it. So let's be clear, right? This is not easy stuff I'm talking about. So this is really important. So I will say, like, I am very much about how important the word respect is. I want dignity to be more of our language. And also, the other thing that's really important as like our way out is that showing someone respect and showing someone dignity actually looks quite similar. But it feels very different in your heart. And I remember being at this school, the last time, and I had a 9th grade kid who had just come from another school and had just arrived at ISP, and he was in 9th grade. And he came up to me afterwards. I was talking about something somewhat similar, and he said to me, why should I even give a teacher dignity if they are treating me without dignity? And I said, okay, tell me more, because I could tell. And he said, because I just came from a school where the students in the class gave me a really embarrassing nickname, and the teacher joined in with the students in calling me that. Why should I give that person even dignity? Now, how is that child going to learn in that classroom, right? How is that a safe place for them to learn? Their brains are absolutely shut down. And what I said to that child was, I absolutely can see what you're saying. And I don't know if that person, I know that person doesn't merit respect because they are not acting as a teacher. They're not acting in a way that is respectful to me. I absolutely see it. And I think that person needs to be treated with dignity, and that's really, really hard, and let's keep talking about it. So there is no answer sometimes to these. The reason I'm saying this to you is if you have a similar situation with your child where they're like, why would I even treat them with dignity? It's really important to say, it's really difficult, let's keep talking about it. This is the way that I do it in middle school. If I have a child who comes to me and complains to me about there's a kid in my class who's making me miserable, and teasing me and teasing me and teasing me, I'm absolutely going to say to this child, so imagine if you are a parent and your child comes to you and says, this other kid is saying these nasty things about where I'm from or my religion or something, right? That seems like a little joke, but not a joke, and I don't know what to say and I hate it. I'm not gonna say to my child, you don't have to be friends with that person, but you do need to respect them. Do you hear that language now? Because now they're like, no, I don't want to respect them. And I'm not going to tell a child to respect those actions. But what I will say is you don't have to be friends with them. You don't have to respect those actions, but I want you to treat them with dignity. What does that look like? So then you go through, what does it look like to actually think about you have inherent worth? And the child doesn't necessarily have to agree with you. It's the conversation that's incredibly important for them because it also shows your values. So you can say, I can imagine you'd want to, for example, say something horrible about them online. Like horrible, right? Absolutely horrible. But that would be entertaining to other people. And somebody's embarrassment is not entertainment. That's our family value. You see how these things all connect? Yeah. Boundaries, yeah, you're talking about establishing boundaries and actively establishing boundaries. One of the things I think about boundaries is in those situations is that usually there's a behavior that's building, right? Like that where they're looking at something or they're having to deal with something and they don't like it and they come talk to you about it, right? Like something that's happening and then you're saying to them, stand up for yourself. One of the things I'd like for you to do in that situation is for them to, and you might be doing this, but to prepare, I want you to write down or draw, I don't care, what is it that's happening that is violating your boundaries so that so the more words they have to describe what's happening, the more their emotional intelligence goes up and their anxiety goes down. But I want you to actually be able to encourage them to write down and explain to themselves what is happening that they don't like. Because the process of doing that enables them to understand the situation better. And when you understand the situation better, you can communicate your boundaries more effectively. So when she does the communication of boundaries, I also think it's really important to be short and clear about what it is that's happening she doesn't like one sentence. So she says what she doesn't like, then and what the violations are. Then she chooses one sentence that she thinks she wants to say, and then she knows that the next time she has the problem, somehow, if she's already done the work, it will come out. She's more prepared to be able to say it, so it's more clear. But the process of that gives her it up levels, it increases her skills about communicating how to stand up for herself. Okay, great question. All right, so let's go to this is like question and answer, and here's some scripts that you're not going to say them exactly this way because you'll sound like me and your children know you and they're onto you, right? They'll be like, oh, you went to that lecture and now you're sounding differently. That's weird. I don't like it. You're not screaming at me. Why are you not screaming at me, right? And this goes for anything, any book you read about them, anything like that, bad, right? Like don't be quoting people. That's not right. It's got to be from you. Like a little bit, I'm like a little bit of screaming. Okay. All right. So, okay, your child comes to you with a problem. Any kind of problem, they are usually going to start general. They're bothering me, something happened. You say, I'm so sorry that happened. Thank you for trusting me to tell me. What do you need from me right now? I would encourage you not to say things like, well, where were you? Well, where was Michelle? Or where was the teacher? What did the other child say? Where did this happen? Because then they shut down because you're too overwhelming and they shut down. Then they start saying things like, I don't remember, or they start looking at their phones. Because it's not that they're addicted to their phones, is that you are freaking them out. Does that make sense? That you're too much. It's too many questions, so they want to look at their phones. Okay. Does anybody go to law school in this room? Okay, bad. It's bad to go to law school What I mean by that is that lawyers and that kind of way of learning and inquisition is not sometimes helpful in these situations, okay? Because it's overwhelming. Having a lawyer as a parent can be overwhelming. You're like, stop with all of the questions. All right, okay.
My son tells me.
He does. Oh,
He tells me, I don't like to tell you because then he said like.
More questions. Exactly. It's intolerable. Exactly. Please apologize to him afterwards. All right. I'm learning not to be a lawyer. I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. What if your child comes to you, let me go backwards, and says, I'm going to tell you this, but you have to promise not to tell the school. Okay? So here's what I want you to say. I wish I could make that promise, but I cannot, because you cannot, because you might have to break the promise. I can promise that if you tell me something where we need to go talk to another adult, we can decide who it will be together, and I will help you get to that person. Remember I said the thing about my kid? I was too much for my child. I basically should have gone to law school. I have lawyers on both sides of my family. So I can be intolerable with those kinds of questions. So there's a lot of actual reasons here too, where you're showing faith and confidence in the school that there's someone here that can be there for them. So there's lots of good reasons. And you're also saying that when you have a problem, there's no shame in asking for help outside of the family, which is very powerful for them. So that is something you can say if they're saying, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't do anything about it. You can't say anything about it, because you know what happens in those situations? I don't know if you know this about what happens in schools, but what happens in schools is that parents get this moment and they don't know what to do. So they call someone like Michelle and they say, they do exactly the same thing that the child did to you, they do to Michelle. They say, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't do anything about it. And then the person in Michelle's position is like, I have to do something about it, right? So it's just very challenging to be a school administrator. All right, what else? Okay, what if your child this is academic. What if your child does really badly in something and they're so frustrated and you want to talk to them? I'm going to talk to the teachers about this afternoon. So you have to separate out their emotions from actually getting them to learn something about the test. So I'm guessing that the last thing you want to do right now is look over the things you wish you had done better, had gotten a better grade on, or why you're here, why we're talking today, why I got a call from the school. Is that right? So you're giving them some space. And the response to that might be, yeah, that's it, right? Or maybe just silence. Just let them just sit for a minute. Do you want to take a few minutes to tell me how you're feeling? Maybe we'll just talk about that now, and then we can talk about the test, we can talk about the paper, we can talk about the grade, we can talk about how angry you are at the teacher later. So we want to separate it out. Okay. What if, and this is also something I'm going to go over with the faculty as well. What if your child gets into trouble? Here's what you can say. I guess it's stressful to be here, but we have to talk about what happened. Here's what was reported to me, or here's what I saw. So this is like, for example, what if your child is the one who's been joking around and making those comments, and now you've gotten a call from the school, right? How do you talk to your child to help be an ally for your child and for the school? So you're in partnership. Here's what was reported to me, or here's what I saw. You listen to your child. I define listening as being prepared to be changed by what you hear. Being prepared to be changed by what you hear. Your child pretty much has in their head that they know you really well. You raise your eyebrow and they're like, oh my gosh, she's so angry, right? My dad gets super, super quiet. My mom gets super quiet. They are so angry. Or, because sometimes it's not yelling. Sometimes it's super, super quiet is the scariest. So they have a lot of things in their head about you. So you listen and try your best to just relax your body. Can you help me? Here's the follow-up. Can you help me understand how we got here? How did we get here? I understand, and this is I telling you, so important for partnership with the school and for your child. I understand that maybe people will ask you about our conversation or what kind of trouble you're in. That can be a lot of pressure. So do you want to spend a few minutes together thinking about what you say? Because if your child gets into trouble with a couple of other kids, as soon as the conversation that you have with them is over, as they're walking away, they are taking out their phone and saying, da da da, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me. And then the other kids are like, what happened? What did you say to your parents? What did you say to your parents, right? So they have to, again, this is prefrontal cortex, good working. This is working together as a unit. But they are thinking about it and talking about it. So everything I said to you about in the beginning, it is literally intolerable to them to be in these situations, which is why they lie. Why they come out of the school, like the school could significantly discipline a child. The child is crying in the office. They walk out of the office and they say to their friends, nothing happened, I'm good. I totally worked. It was Michelle, she putty in my hands. And Michelle has completely disciplined them, and they lie. And they lie because it is intolerable to them to be embarrassed and to face what they've done. The problem with that is that then the kids who get I totally handled it, no problem, they look at that, they're like, oh, they didn't get disciplined for saying that horrible thing. And then they tell their parents, and the parents totally believe it because their children are saying, yeah, they did. The school didn't discipline. Like the kid said this horrible racist thing, ethnically terrible thing, whatever it is, or said whatever it was, and the parents decide because they got it from their kids that nothing happened. When in fact, actually, the school is doing a lot to discipline the child, but they can't tell everybody because it is a violation of professionalism and confidentiality to say anything. So then the administrators have to walk around the school with other people thinking they did nothing when they did a lot. And that is the reality of school. It's the reality of school. So it is really important, just to close up here, to be able to say, to acknowledge it, to say, this is a tough spot. You're in a tough spot here. So let's think about what you can say that we can be proud of when you walk out of here. Because it acknowledges the pressure they're under and gives them some words to be successful so they don't lie. And they know that you're acknowledging what they're in, the situation they're in, and it's within your values and you're supporting them. High expectations, high support. Okay. So with that, I wanted to see where you wanted to go with your questions and things. Is there any other last questions? Because the bell, the lovely bell at ISP has rung. So any other questions, comments, anything that you need before I excuse you and get ready for working with 7th and 8th graders? Can you believe I do this for a living? I put myself in front of 7th and 8th graders. I sometimes wonder, I have to tell you. I'm like, why do I do this? Why do I like doing this? Any other things that you need? Okay, well, here is how. Let me show you how to get a hold of me. And by the way, I just here's how you get a hold of me. And I am just loading up a whole new series, 5 or 6, videos for parents on this topic of me talking about how do you talk to your kids in these situations. That's on Instagram. And also today, or yesterday, I launched co-hosting a podcast on AI and literacy with a very dear colleague of mine who runs Equal AI in the United States. So that just launched, for whatever, just by coincidence, just launched yesterday. So that you can find on LinkedIn as well. Okay? All right. My homework for you, if you are in 7th and 8th, who has parents of 7th and 8th graders? Okay. Do not, when you see them today, ask like, how was it today, right? Just here's what I'd like for you to do. Just try. At the end of it, say, if they're here today, if the 4 kids I'm going to do in 7th and 8th grade, so you had that presentation today, right? If they don't mention it. So you had that thing today. So was it realistic? Was it not realistic? You know, and then based on their answers, just have a conversation, because way more important than what I say is the conversation that you have with them. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle.